The oral tradition of storytelling is the oldest of all of our traditions. Long before the flute, the rattle, and even the drum, there were storytellers. And unlike today, those storytellers were not thought of as just entertainers. They were teachers and historians. Having no written language, it was storytelling that preserved our legends, our history, and much of our culture. But storytelling was also used as a method of teaching the young ones, and sometimes reminding the not-so-young ones how to live in a good way.
All right, you guys. Hey, we are live here. We are back here, ready to rock and roll for day number 2 of Indigenous Storytelling here at Clifford Watney School. And today, our second guest is Tommy Christians. It's Christian, right?
Yeah.
Christian. So, welcome, Tommy. Welcome to the show here. We're just gonna wait a little bit here, a couple more seconds here for more people to sign on. But
Sure.
with that, just give me a sec here, Tommy. I'll put this through real quick. You guys, thank you for tuning in, and just want you to know that we are going to go for a month-long storytelling with very varied guests, trying to go as far as we can around the world, but right now we've just made it to Montana, and how far we can go after that. But yeah, with that, thank you for tuning in, and we're going to get right to it. I'm not going to talk too long. Tommy wants to put in 3 hours today, he said. I told him we were going to go for 2 hours, and he said, that's it. And I said, hey, if you want to do another hour, man, go hard. Anyway, Tommy, go ahead, man. Introduce yourself. Take it away.
Thank you, Nathan. How mitaki epi ambe tukile me chante taua ke na hanam pe chuza pelo. Ho he chaje mita wamnisha ge doba imachiapi. Ushimalo omakia na ha agna gupta. He chetuelo. And again, we'd like to say a great big thank you. That was kind of like a little formal introduction as it relates to how we introduce ourselves without our parents and grandparents involved in that whole thing. But what I said in my language was, on this day, I'm going to speak to you from my heart, and I offer you all my hand, shaking hands. And my Assiniboine name is Eagle Claw, but they also refer to me as Four. And my relatives, welcome. You know, today we're going to talk a few subjects, and hopefully Nathan will facilitate those things, but entice us to realize and understand the importance of maybe really addressing the need of this IT perspective, getting our little things, getting used to talking on the computer for the sake of socializing and kind of getting the message across, communicating, visiting, all these good things that are happening in the Indian country today is really different than what we're used to. And based on the fact that I'm currently working as a cultural liaison in the Fort Peck Community College right here in Poplar, Montana, representing the Buffalo Chasers Society. And in that, we need to really help us understand the importance of lineal teaching. Lineal teaching is, of course, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and that's a more contemporary manner in which we choose to accept this educational process. And then we can go, and once we learn it, we could say, I know. But in our cultural perspective, based on natural law, we're more of an abstract learning process peoples, And that what that means is it's more of a experiential teaching, hands-on process in which is shared with us through this opportunity to verbalize this direction and guidance, And I think as we do these things, with this change that has come about so abruptly in respects to this COVID, this virus, we need to really kind of adapt and adjust to that, because we're representatives of this resiliency that we've been throughout time. We got to remember, in a good way, they tried to commit a genocide on most indigenous people across this land for the sake of their capitalistic imperialistic ways of life, because again, they were chasing the dollar, and they looked at the worth as opposed to from a materialistic perspective, as opposed to something that could kind of give back to our Mother Earth, which we consider ourselves managers of. So that whole aspect of coming around and then understanding a contemporary way of life, but adapting and adjusting for the sake of resiliency, our cultural value system, a standard that is totally alien to most contemporary ways, but yet we understand the importance of things such as that. And it was all based on verbalizing, communicating, usually in our own languages and in the manner in which was good to us, and it was always shared in a gracious manner. It was always taught to us with dignity and honor, and that representation of who our teacher was. Our won spekia hemeta na wenuk chalapi wichak chalapi. My teachers were old ladies and old men that I held dear to my hearts, and in that process, they graciously shared with me avenues in which I could deal with some of life's ups and downs. I was never told what to do, if that makes sense to any of you. And as we do these things, we come to understand our own personal abilities to look inwardly. As First Nations people, as Indigenous people, we believe we come from Mother Earth, and so therefore we refer to the Earth as our mother, and in respects that we always want to treat her with respect. So when we're not looking this way and blaming others for our problems, and we look inwardly and accept that responsibility of being that manager of our Mother Earth and take that responsibility under the auspice of human being, then we can better understand the importance of natural law or abstract learning based on our ability to exercise these virtues that help us develop a character from within. First Nations people, unlike our non-Indian Indian brothers and sisters, our non-Indian brothers and sisters, they heal from the outside in. First Nations people, we heal from the inside out. Based on that perspective. Just a little food for thought. And hopefully, as you listen to me about some of these things that I share, we always, let's say, remain somewhat apolitical. And that's important. Because again, the way we look at things, it was not for this individualism, which I guess capitalism and imperialism it pursues, but more from an individuality perspective, where it's we, us, and them. That's individuality. Individualism is I, me, my. Sort of a attitude, and that's kind of alien to our standard, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Is we need to realize that although we're different and we see things different, doesn't mean we're wrong. We're just different. And so this diversity and this uniqueness of our cultural perspective based on natural law should become an enhancement and an enrichment for the sake of the growth of our young people, or our youth. When I say that, a lot of people, it goes over their head. They say, well, what are you talking about? Because they're trying to apply a standard from a contemporary way of thought process to something that is more natural in respects to our teaching manner, from abstract learning, all that good stuff, experiential, and the graciousness in which it's shared. And to help you understand the importance of that difference, like a contemporary teacher is more autocratic in her manner. Take control, manage your classroom, because they're usually, be it a he or she, are graded on that based on their ability to control their classroom. Whereas in an Indian world, it's kind of a little bit different. They kind of want you to be free-spirited, I want you to understand as you do these things. And again, remember, you're taught from the day of birth up until you have another teacher, the importance of respecting yourself and respecting others, especially those that are older than you. And so as we do these things, we realize the importance or these aspects that are going to develop our character to enhance our ability to pursue our purpose and dedication that was intended for us before we came on earth. Hey, is that cool or what? Yeah. And so in that process, that diversity and that uniqueness is represented. Diversity, of course, a fine example of diversity amongst First Nations people is powwow. Eh? Kind of like that. All these different nations coming together and celebrating life in a manner in which is shared with us in a positive way, in a good way. And it evolved into something that you can make a little money at it right now. But initially, it was given an opportunity for us to respect our Mother Earth based on our ability to acknowledge this unnatural act of maybe killing an enemy, which we weren't into, by the way, but we addressed those issues. And of course, powwow was celebrating life by affording our warriors that went to war an opportunity to share with us a story in which how they went about counting coup on the enemy, or making them stay away from us, which was ours. And a lot of people don't understand that the historical value of our way of life was kind of looked into by non-Indian people. And that non-Indian perspective kind of influenced the outcome of history. But once you get Indians in there to help them understand why these things were done in the manner in which they are done, we come to find out that if our non-Indian relatives did the research, we were savages, we were pagans, we were heathens, But if our relatives that are Indian did the research, we were noble, gallant warriors, peacemakers and peacekeepers, and not savage or anything like that. So, that's the difference that exists in our world today. And as a result of that, a lot of things have our non-Indian relatives based on capitalism, because they determine their wealth on materialism. They think they got over on us because they took our land, they're making us do this, da. Not necessarily so. We know what you took. If we felt we needed it, we probably would have killed you to keep it. But you're still here amongst us, And so it wasn't important to us because it's what you wanted. That's not what we necessarily needed in respects for that, because we knew there was lots. Our attitude towards Mother Earth wasn't one of ownership. It was one of sharing. And we felt our Mother Earth was sharing these plants, which is our medicine, the animals, giving them an opportunity to survive. All these things were providing us with understanding the importance of our purpose and our dedication in life. And so in that if you put it all together, there's no way we had an attitude of ownership or materialism or acquiring or accumulating wealth based on how much we had. We always felt that whatever we had, if we had more than enough, we always shared it. That's one of the key things. And one of the most respectful things that we did as First Nations people, Indigenous people, or just common people, is the most respectful thing you can do to another person is feed them. Yeah, just basic, just like that. Not worried about the worth or the cost of it or anything like that. But if we had it, you had it. A cup of coffee was considered a meal to some. I remember my dad used to send us to school when we were little kids, and that's what we'd eat. We'd have a cowboy breakfast, and it consisted of a cup of coffee with lots of sugar in there and toast. And my dad didn't want us to go to school on an empty stomach. But at the same time, check this out. I'll share this with you. At the same time, back in the day, nobody knew about Ritalin or anything like that or whatever. But my dad, based on his ability to identify my behavior, because I was ADHD, I had real bad attention deficit disorder. I was hyper, in other words. He told me, he said, I would feed you guys coffee because if you drank coffee before you went to school, you had a good day. But if you didn't have coffee and then you went to school all hyper, you'd have a messed up day. So he figured that out on his own. And so we'd have cowboy breakfast before we go to school, which consisted of coffee and toast, eh? And so, but think about it. What would coffee do to a ADHD child? It calms them down. But back in the day, before that Ritalin or whatever they had, my dad figured that out on his own, and so he gave us coffee. Is that cool or what? That's just something that a lot of our non-Indian relatives don't realize we are capable of doing. We are capable of looking after ourselves, taking care of ourselves, understanding the importance of the body healing of itself, not really into medicines, pharmaceuticals or anything like that, but more of a natural way of living. And they couldn't accept that. Eh? They wanted to control it. But we let them, not because we were stupid or ignorant, but because that's what they wanted to do. So if you look at it like that, that was actually an indication of respect. Henny, hello, that's you. If that's what you want to do, go do it. And whatever the outcome was, and see, their thought process was that we were dumb savages that didn't understand the importance of monetary value, if you would, but our value was other than that. They thought they were stealing from us, and they weren't. We just let them have it because they wanted it. So kind of like that. But, and going along those lines, our people today sometimes get caught up in that contemporary perspective. Like right now, we get too enthralled in, this informational technology just kind of, I don't want to do it. I don't need to do it, but I have to do it because of school. And this is the way they're doing it. Oh man, why don't they do it my way? Why don't they just get in a teepee and tell us? I don't have to get on a machine and talk to it and all stuff like that. But sometimes in the representation of that resiliency, we can do it and we will do it. And in that process, we're going to realize how to benefit from it for the sake of our perspective, which is character development. We're going to learn how to develop our character, the patience, the compassion, the empathy, the love, the caring, the sharing, all of those virtues that are not God-given blessings, but are something that we need to work on every day that would help us to become a better person. And the reason we become a better person is not to hold ourselves up, but because we understand the importance of not only in that representation of ourselves, but also, and even more so, of our family. And even more than that, not only of our family, but of our tribe. And that representation of our tribe, we also want our young people to understand the importance of the honor and the dignity needs to be maintained for the sake of the integrity of who we are as a people. Does that make sense or what? Oh man, it's getting better and better and that, man. But the whole thing is the importance of the manner in which we're taught. Remember, I was talking about the teachers that kind of have to take control of their classroom for the sake of being autocratic and all this good stuff. Hey, that's their job. That's their responsibility to their profession, and that's what they know. I can't say I know because I never went to college, but I went to, I learned about my culture and my value system. That's why I talk in the manner in which I talk. And I don't have to claim that I'm anybody other than just in my language, we say a kchewi chasha. I'm just a common man. But yet, through this learning process, my teachers were, like I shared with you earlier, old Indian ladies, old Indian men that were not influenced by a boarding school era or that era of people or where our our cultural value system was contaminated. I was taught by those that were brought up by their grandparents. My dad was brought up by his grandparents, not his parents. My mom was brought up by her grandmother, not her mom. And see, that's why I'm old school. My attitude is such, but I don't impose or infringe on anybody else's right to exist as it relates to that perspective. In other words, if they ask me, I'll share with them what I see. Okay? And in that, you can bet your last money that it's going to come from a perspective of old school, that old thought process, and it becomes something different, but yet I don't feel inhibited or held back because of the way that I think. I just try to fit in and understand my purpose and my dedication as it relates to helping others. And when we do that, in my language, we say, "Nak e nula wa un." And what that means is you're prepared for anything when you're strong and when you have that character to be a leader. Eh? And that leadership ability was identified in me by older folks. I sat on the tribal council for 18 years, and that representation of the Nakona and the Dakota and the Lakota people here on the Fort Peck Reservation. And I retired about 3 years ago, but not because I was voted out or anything, but because I got sick and I needed to step away because of stress and all that good stuff. But I think, but mostly, the reason why I didn't continue on is because a lot of my support had passed away, because a lot of that support came from the old people, the matriarchs and the patriarchs of many families throughout a reservation that could relate to my form of leadership. And then they would share that in a respectful, dignified, respectful way so that we could understand how I was maintaining the integrity of who we were based on that natural law value system. Is that cool or what? But, on the other hand, with this contemporary, very fast way of living, it appeared, I don't say it did, but it appeared I wasn't able to keep up. I could keep up, but I didn't want to, because I didn't feel the need for us to be going that fast, because we were leaving too much behind. And that is in respects to a value system that is culturally orientated. And our language, our ceremony, they were being somewhat patronized to a certain degree, where they weren't being accentuated. And the reason I felt that we were going too fast and they were being left behind, because how are we wishing to address the systematic racism that is definitely evident, even more so now as a result of what Trump brought forward, but even more so on a reservation in respects to the upbringing of our children? How are we addressing this historical trauma, this internalized oppression? How are we as First Nations people addressing that? Guess what? We're not. How they address it and identify with our identity. Oh, teach them the language. That's good. No, I'm sorry. That's not good enough. That's patronizing. As respectful as you try to be, it's not being very respectful. Because when you got a body of people, like in the boarding school era, that were taught not to talk it and beat, and there's a certain disregard you have for the importance of language. But if you were taught by the old people that didn't speak nothing but the language, then that was different. They understood the importance of the respect that it was owed. And so now you got a generational gap there that's affecting the outcome of our children, that is denying them access to this truth. Wowichake obomani. That means I walk with the truth, eh? And in respects to that, in a more contemporary value system, a lot of the truths that I live are not accepted. Look at Trump. Look what he did with the lies. He convinced how many people? 74 million people he convinced with his lies. And that's not what Indian people do. We find it more important to live with the basis of reality in respects to sharing the truth, to prepare our young people for that truth that they're going to have to be confronted with at some point once they take on the responsibility, be it leadership of their family, leadership of their tribe, whatever the case may be. But the importance of character development is probably of the utmost, because again, that represents that individuality. Remember, I spoke about that individuality, where it's us, we, and them. What is my purpose? What is my responsibility for the sake of the greater good that is represented by this Changleshka, or this circle of life, as opposed to individualism, which would represent an attitude of entitlement and internalized oppression, lateral violence, historical oppression, continuing that, and getting greedy and just what I can get out of it. That's that individualism. But see, our young people need to understand these things and be able to address those issues. Guess what? Based on a curriculum that applies to not only the non-Indian people, but the Indian people as well. We talk about that lots amongst ourselves, and a lot of educators speak about that, but don't know how to implement it into a system that is being controlled by a society that doesn't even acknowledge us as human beings. Or think about that. And I'm hoping that I'm not trying to influence you or infringe or on your right to your existence, but based on critical thinking, the ability to be a critical thinker, I'm hoping that we can recharge, reintroduce what I call is an ideological paradigm shift in respects to the attitudes that we have of ourselves. And then go beyond those inhibitions and those things that hold us back, and not be afraid to speak to them, not be afraid to understand what's important to me as it relates to my identity. Is it truly my language? Is it truly my attendance at a ceremony? No, well, not necessarily. Do we need to be this neophyte Indian representative? Feathers and beads and powwows and ceremonies and sweat? No, not at all. What it needs to be is what I spoke about initially on my introduction. Ambe tukile mi chante tao agalake. On this day, I'm going to speak to you from my heart. So what's in your heart to us is important. And then it helps you to understand the pursuit that you have based on all these adventures you're going to go through throughout life, and sharing your purpose and your dedication with us. Yeah, is that cool or what? And we've addressed that many times prior to the involvement of our non-Indian relatives. And how we used to do that is to seek your purpose and your dedication when our young boys would reach a certain age, and when they start smelling their piss, when they start having a scent, then, and they would get mouthy with their parents, or they get disrespectful to their grandparents. They said, well, it's time to go. It's time for him to go. And so you go get the uncles and say, hey, this guy's got to go out. Get yourself ready, boy. Put your little stuff together. Let's go. And he said, where am I going? I don't want to go. Well, you got to go Hamblechia. Hamblechia to us is you cry all night for a vision. And the vision you seek is giving you an understanding of what your purpose and your dedication is. And that usually happens about 12, 13, 14 years old, whatever age they're at, they come to that point in their little character as it relates to when they think they know it all. Yeah, kind of like that. And so that was identified within our little family circles, and we'd go put these young boys on the hill, and they'd sit up there for 4 days and 4 nights with no food, no water, and all they had was a pipe or tobacco, and they would pray. Wachekia in our language doesn't necessarily mean prayer. What it means is a heartfelt cry. It relates to crying. Okay? In other words, you're humbling yourself to this higher power, which we call Wakatanka, to provide you with direction and guidance on this red road of understanding, to what your purpose and dedication is in a good way. Remember that dignity and that honor that I spoke of that would help us understand the importance of the integrity of who we are? Put it together. And it's really cool because I like to talk like this because it sounds like I'm really educated. I'm not. I went to high school. That's it. But my education process came from, like I said, the Winuk Shalapi, Oichak Shalapi, won't speak ya hemita. These older ladies that I held dear to my heart, and these older men that I held dear to my heart, that carried this wisdom that they shared with me. Eh? Is that cool or what? You know why it's so cool? It's a good thing because it's an Indian thing. Yeah. You don't only represent yourself, you represent your family, your tribe, and indigenous people all over the world that have maintained their cultural and their value system in spite of this outside influence. And so we recognize that. We acknowledge that. We respect that. And my dad always professed to me that he said, my son, he said, there's as many ways to go to God as there is blades of grass. And as indigenous people, we respect every one of those ways. Hey, is that cool? Yeah, it's a good thing because it's an Indian thing, my relatives. So, when we walk this way, it's important to establish what we refer to as a sense of balance. And that's what we aspire to, based on our ability to make ourselves stronger. They used to tell us, "Metakuye naha prehichia, ni takuye wachi pelo." I said, "What'd you say?" He said, "My relative, make yourself strong. Your relatives are depending on you." It's hard to be an Indian, but I love my Indian ways. And as we do these things, we don't recognize the hardship as no job, no car, all that. No, we recognize the hardship as looking within yourself, what's in your heart, and what it is your purpose and dedication is, and developing a character that can afford you an opportunity to share that. Okay? You see, it's different. Not acquire all this knowledge to where you can tell everybody, I know, yes, I know. I'd tell my dad that. He'd say, "My son, do you get that?" I said, "Yeah, I know, Dad, I know." He said, "Well, if you know so damn much, you do it then." I said, "Oh, no, you do it. I'll watch you. I don't know." I understand. That's what he was looking for. He was wanting me to, on my own accord, quit saying, "I know," and start saying, "I understand." And so in that process, that was a part of that graciousness that was shared with me in this process of teaching, of educating oneself based on their ability to share their purpose and their dedication. Eh? Is that cool? That's old school, man. That's not having a brand new car, brand new house, and all that good stuff, and all this money in the bank. No, that's kind of just sharing in a good way, but in a respectful way. You never deplete your own resources so that you'll be in need as a result of that sharing. No. You share in a good way. You have this generous perspective and a respectful way of oneself first, and then, of course, respect of the whole. But it's things like that a lot of our people kind of take for granted because we live life so fast now. And this value system I'm speaking of is shared with us at a time when life is very slow. But that doesn't mean that we're denied it, because we have an opportunity within ourselves based on our own personal choices, not because somebody told us to, but based on our own personal choices to slow ourselves down. Sometimes that slowing down does mean go take a walk by the creek, feel the motion of the water, feel that good energy, the ions that it gives off, or go into a sweat lodge. Go in there and suffer for the sake of others, based on your commitment that you made with this higher power, that you would like to help somebody else with their healing process, with their illness, with their struggle in life in general. And you do that when you commit to with some sense of sincerity by suffering in this very hot, you know, situation, this little voodoo hut. No, it's not a voodoo hut. They just that's what they call it, a voodoo hut, but it's not. It's a very ceremonial place and a lot of respect in there, and I hate to tease like that, but I have to. Sometimes I got to say stuff like that. But we consider that the 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 womb of our grandmother Earth. We go on back in there and we share and pray Wachekia, not necessarily prayer, but Wachekia. We share these wishes with this heartfelt cry for the sake of others, not necessarily for ourselves, and all that good stuff. So we do those things like that. Then we can go to other areas of dealing with these things, through the Sundance, through Lowampi, through Uwipi, through different types of ceremonies, shaking tents, stuff like that. There's different protocols. They're not ways, they're protocols in which we can call on this connection that we've maintained with our spirit world to help us. It's not something like voodoo or witchcraft or anything like that. It's one with a sense of respect for this other dimension that exists, that we've acknowledged and we kept connection with. And it's something that the women naturally maintain connection with every 28 days of their life. Until, of course, they go through that transition, in which at that time they would be considered Winukshala. Up until that point, they're Wia, in reference to the moon. But think about that. And those differences and that diversity that exists out there is represented by the uniqueness we display based on our teachings of this protocol, be it our language or our ceremony or whatever the case may be. But the uniqueness is represented. And so when I made reference to the powwow representing that diversity, that's exactly what it does for the sake of the many tribes coming together and all of these all of this commonness in one good way and a spiritual way, helping us heal as a people, helping us to express ourselves from the inside out on how we're feeling about the heartbeat of our Mother Earth and that healing aspect that brings forward through our chanchega, the drum, and the commonness of that way, and adorn yourself in your finest regalia, not for the sake of the audience, but for the sake of this spiritual energy that's up there. We adorn ourselves in our finest regalia to let all of that energy know our legs are working, our arms are working, my mind is working. And I adorn myself for you to let you know that, yes, I'm feeling good. I'm thinking good. I'm talking good, because I'm preparing myself to someday soon go be with you and all of my relatives. Oh, man, think about that. And that's what powwow represents. It's a celebration of life that helps us realize our commonness, but yet at the same time, our uniqueness and the manner in which we've adorned ourselves, be it based on design or color, category, or just the individuality of oneself. But being able to express yourself in the manner in which Powell has afforded us, keeping in time to that heartbeat of our Mother Earth. And although aesthetically we look nice, it takes a lot of work to come to that point in our life to where we are physically capable of representing not only ourselves, but our family, our tribe, and all of Indigenous people in that manner. And again, understanding the importance of keeping it in perspective as it relates to socializing, communicating, verbalizing these differences, and not being afraid. My relatives, don't be afraid. Take courage, be strong, and step up and represent. Because our indication is not to dominate, dictate, or be autocratic in our manner, but one of ekcheoichasha, be common people and share that, because it's an indication of respect. But those are the things that were shared with me. And as we do these things, we understand the importance of the effects of this assimilation. So how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to address that? As an older Indian man, how am I wishing that my children be accepted into the circle of life with their value system still intact from an Indigenous perspective? How are we going to do that? Are they continuing to hang their identity on a nail outside that classroom and then walking in the classroom and learning their way, and then coming back out and picking their identity up and putting it back on in respects to their Indian identity? Or are we going to wish to try to implement into the curriculum a different, what do they call it, pedagogy or some pedagogy or something like that, a different way of teaching into that curriculum to help them understand, to be inclusive of a more natural people's way of belief and understanding? And you realize we've indicated time and time again the acceptance of your belief systems. Now we're wishing you just accept ours, because understanding the difference, we are not a religious peoples, as you imply, or you even infer that our way of life is religious. It's not. We're not religious people. We're spiritual people. And those protocols are just a way of life for us. You see? Does that make sense? Pedagogy. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, we were Googling it too there, Tommy.
Yeah. I forgot the word. Yeah. And some of these things, Nathan, I don't know if this is something you want to hear, but I'm just speaking my heart.
Yeah, we're open to hearing anything, whatever you feel like sharing, Even if you want to sing a song, hey, bless us with that.
Yeah. Oh, my voice is dead. But no. That's what I mean when I shared with you initially, Nathan.
Yeah.
These things, this ideological paradigm shift, is something that needs to be incorporated into the minds of our young people, based on the ability of or the avenue of critical thinking, so that they can realize God give them a mind to think on their own, be intuitive, and step up and not be afraid. But you see, this whole philosophical approach is, one time on Facebook I wrote on there, where do you hide your Indian when you're trying to act white? And I was getting all these responses, Tommy, you're so racist. And it wasn't a racial statement. You know what it was? It was a reality. That's like hanging your identity on a nail when you walk into the classroom. That's where it was going. Why do we accept that? Why do we accept that behavior in order for us to be accepted by white society? Why do we have to hang our identity on that nail? Why do we have to hide our Indianness to be accepted? Why can't that be included? And apolitically, you see what I'm saying? Not
Yeah.
have a political or personal agenda on that, but apolitically, just make it natural. Just make it something that where it's total inclusiveness. They talk about equality. Look at us, man.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Nathan? Tell me
Oh,
what
yeah.
your thoughts are, bro.
I get that, man. Like sometimes you gotta, like, they like, even when you got, they talk when you're on the phone sometimes, and all of a sudden they say you gotta put on your white voice. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know what I mean? Yeah, like something like that. We should be proud of our reserve accents, I guess you can say. Yeah, but
I,
yeah, no, I
I,
get what you're saying.
I was just talking about that with my brother, Earl Bullhead. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's kind of famous on the Power Trail. But he's
Mhm.
on our podcast on Thursday with us. But I was talking to him about that the other day, and he said he moved back down to Fort Yates, and they were looking at him, and he said, "Oh, Earl, you got a different accent, eh?" He said, because I spend a lot of time in Canada, I say "a" more than Canadians do. I'm a
Mm.
Canadian too, but he went back south to North Dakota and Fort Yates, and he was using "a" all the time too. And he said, "What are you talking about, eh?" But I influenced Earl in that respect. But that's a little inside joke with us. But what that represents is the influence you can have on another person, be it
Yeah,
a good thing, eh? But identifying uh, the respect that is there as well, and see that's what's being lost because of, like I said, woe chaki obomani. I walk with the truth, eh?
yeah,
And a lot of people will try to defend that with some sense of cognitive dissonance because they've been trained to accept half truths as the truth, eh? For the sake of being effective or being getting the most out of it. They don't tell you the whole truth. They tell you half truth, and then they steal from you. That's not our way. What'd you think of that?
I'm in the zone listening to you, man.
Okay, okay. You
Very
know,
well listened.
yeah, and one of the things that we're doing, trying to help our young people uh, understand the importance of representing and going beyond that representation and even uh, setting new standards, hey, ideological paradigm shift, new standards as it relates to how they wish to go forward. Excuse me. I was watching the inauguration, and that young poet laureate that came forward. Oh man, that young lady. Let me tell you, um, when I seen that and I heard what she had to say, and she shared that poem with everybody, I looked at that right there and I said to myself, how many of our young Indian people are capable of doing that as well from their own perspective? Because that young lady, man, that was a beautiful poem. It was her. She wrote it herself in respects to some of the things that were going on, like right now, eh? And our young people want to say that, want to share that. It doesn't have to come out in rap music or singing at a drum or anything. They can say it. They can talk it. They can share it, and just that way. And that's again identifying our ability to express oneself. Eh? Uh, that's what powwow does. We're expressing from the inside out how we feel on that particular day. The ability it took to put on your regalia, paint your face, or put on your identity factors, be it a jingle dress or a fancy shawl or a traditional garb, and go out there and represent. That's a very, very scary thing for Indigenous people because we're kind of uh, introverted, if you will, for lack of a better word. And but in spite of that, based on vision, dreams, or whatever the case may be, direction and
Yeah.
guidance of older people, we step out there. As hard as it is, and yet we represent. And then the music, our music, takes over. That natural process takes over, And then you see the beauty and the flow of that connection with our Mother Earth, eh?
I have
Oh,
that video.
man.
Do you want me to pop it up here for a sec, or
Sure, sure.
let's see here? Hold on, and then people can know, because I've never listened to it. I kind of heard it.
Listen to it. Listen to it. Yeah.
I'm just hold that. Give me a sec here. I think I did this wrong. I have to bring the sound in. I didn't bring the sound in.
Yeah. Oh man, that's it. Listen to the
Who,
whole thing. Yeah.
who is she? What's her name?
Hey you.
All right, here. I'm gonna put it full screen. Okay. This is what Tommy was talking about.
Mr. President,
Oh,
Dr. Biden,
we're on Res Wi-Fi.
Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gaze not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew. That even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together, victorious. Not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division.
Oh.
Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded.
Yeah.
But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith, we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era.
I think our Res Wi-Fi is starting to hit up now. Reserve internet's kicking in. Yeah, wow. What is that lady again?
I don't know her name, but again, you can see. But you know, when I was listening to that, I was in my mind, because I'm so powwow, I was thinking about those fancy shawl dancers that were dancing just so gracefully, those ladies traditional dancers that were standing in one place dancing so dignified, and the ladies jingle, oh man, going around in spite of their own problems, connecting us with Mother Earth in the manner that healing. And that's the way I applied it. And I seen this one girl, this little girl here, sharing all those things, and I'm saying, oh man, I wonder if anybody else thinks like that. But it means so much to me to understand without being too racist. People of color can't be racist, right? I shared that with our people a long time ago, and I said the only one that can be racist are white people, because racism, when you read the definition of that, has superiority along with it. And we're not superior over anything, nor do we claim to be, because we believe that we don't have dominion over anything. We're just a Chewichasha. But I just thought I'd throw it in there. But from my powwow perspective, I always looked at the way our people danced and they expressed themselves. Goes beyond word of mouth, but yet you can see it in many of our dancers, that just, the passion that they have, the understanding of themselves as it relates to their trying and wishing to realize their potential based on their capabilities of keeping time with the music, and how they've taken care of what needs to be looked after with such goodness, and the manner, and of course the ritual, for lack of a better word, in which they go through when they get dressed, what they go through after they get dressed, and how to maintain that regalia throughout the whole day. People sometimes take that for granted when they see the beauty of this collaborative effort between the drum and the dancers. And again, that's what I was thinking of when I heard that little girl sharing that poem. Well, we do the same thing, but we do it collaboratively, connecting with our Mother Earth, utilizing these natural tools in which we refer to as the drum, in respects to it, that expression. And you see that in a lot of our dancers, and you see that the potential that exists there in our young people learning those things. Instead of, in my position, I was a leader here of our people for 18 years, and the end result was they called me a racist. Our leadership, our Indian leadership, called me a racist, because they said all I did was go to powwows and ceremony, and that's all. And I had to sarcastically come back to him and say, no, I'm not a racist because I golf. No, that of course was a joke. White people golf, kind of like that. But the point being is, why is it that our people are becoming so caught up in that acceptance in that value system, as opposed to acknowledging or even representing our basis, our foundation based on natural law? Instead, they would attack one of their own, which was me, in calling me names, because I went where I was comfortable. And I was most comfortable at powwows, ceremonies, sweats, Sundance, hand games, stuff like that. And they called me a racist because I wouldn't hang around white people like they did. And I do. I golf. What do you think of that, Nathan?
Hey, man, I try golf too, but I get it. Yeah.
But you see, Nathan, the thing of it is our young people need to understand there's nothing wrong with being ethnocentric. That we can be inclusive. The key word to I believe Indian understanding of this preparation to go and be to this next place, this next dimension, is inclusivity. We include everything and everybody in what we call the circle of life, this Changleshka. It's referred to that in our language based on this attitude of Wamakashka. All creation is involved in that. And so what is our place in this creation, the circle of life, as we look towards the center? And once we identify the center, what is my path to go there and support that center? And a lot of people don't realize we communicate. Let's say I'm on this side of the circle and somebody's way over there on the other side. I wouldn't have a full understanding of what was in the center until, of course, that individual on the other side of the circle communicated to me what they saw. Then I would communicate with them what I saw, and then we'd have a little bit better understanding of what the center actually consisted of. And I think that failure to communicate is one of the problems that we have. Our ability to share in a respectful way, not in a conditional way, in regards to who and what we are. And I think that's the intention of that uncontaminated belief system based on our natural law that helps us to understand the uniqueness of us. And they shouldn't be afraid to communicate and share for the sake of the common good.
Yeah. Tommy, we got a question here. I'm going to bring it up.
Why, sure.
I watch American television a lot. I never seen any news coverage on Aboriginal programs, issues, etc. In Canada, we are in the news a lot, even have our own APTN Indigenous channel. Also, we have a couple Aboriginal journalists in Ottawa. I just wonder why that is, and I've never seen any coverage of your tribes. That is true.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. I had an opportunity to discuss the buffalo. He was, I forget that guy's name. He was some anchorman on NBC TV or something, but he was famous, and he come to our tribe and he sat in our library. They had cameras and stuff, and they were asking me questions about our buffalo. And so I was kind of answering him and stuff. And Maury Schaefer, does that make sense? Yeah, that guy, it was him. That's who it was. And I talked to him, and that was one of the questions I had for him off the record, off the screen. Me and him was talking on the side. I said, hey, why don't they? Because I was a tribal leader at that time. That's why they were talking to me, not because I was special, but just because I was a tribal leader. They were speaking to me and wanting to put me on camera. And so I asked this Maury Schaefer, I said, hey, how come they don't have Indian stuff on TV? We're people too, man. Like, how come they don't put us up there? And he said, and all of these big NBC, Fox Radio, Fox TV, CNN, CBS, ABC, he said there's an unwritten law or an understanding that we don't put Indians on TV. I said, why is that? He said, well, it's not good. It's not good story. So they found out, eh? And what
How long ago was this?
Huh?
How long ago was this?
Oh, that have to be 8 years ago, something like that.
That's crazy.
But it still goes on today, because like we get all of these young, like that young black girl that did the poet laureate. How many people do we know, just individual, could do that, and even probably better, and have that compassion and that empathy and just to share that in such a good way because of the oppression. But yet, that's what I'm calling now. And what I just addressed right there, Nathan, was systematic racism. But yet we accept it, eh? We accept it to the point to where, oh, that's just the way it is. Why is it like that? How is it going to benefit our young people if we continue to perpetuate this manifestation of systematic racism the way they intended it, not what we were getting out of it? What do you think of that?
I think you're 150% absolutely right. There's a reason. Sorry, I'm going to kind of switch here to podcasting. I'm a very big advocate of Indigenous podcasts. I started my own, and I encourage every guest I have to start their own podcast. Now we have Raymond Fox of Foxing Around. We have a
Yeah,
young lady
yeah.
named Haley Rose. As soon as you said, "Do we know anybody who could be that that's young?" And Haley Rose, she's from Mosquito First Nation, and I right away when I was thinking, man, Haley could do that. She's 17. She's a powerful
Yeah.
soul, eh? And but I mean, yeah, going back to that systematic racism, we could change the narrative ourselves by telling our own stories live with
Yeah.
these podcasts, such as we are doing now, and have a direct conversation with everybody, but teaching like how you are doing with your words, but at the same answering questions that are in the comments on the live right now. So we're getting real information now from the mouth of
Yeah.
Tommy, my uncle Winston, and whoever else we're going to come on now. So which then changes the narrative to how minorities think about, well, you always they hear different stories, but now they could see it live, and in the comfort of their home without being scared to maybe ask a question now, and change
Yeah.
that direction that they're thinking and that every other people think. So then goes back to, hey, that's why I push podcasts, and we tell our own story.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
tell it how we know it.
And you see, Nathan, so could you, and this is what we've been doing here on our podcast. We're recognizing that as a silver lining in this real dark cloud of COVID. Eh?
Mm.
It's kind of making us step up and kind of bolster up on our IT perspective and our ability to utilize these things that we wouldn't normally utilize. And when we go on our podcast, we usually start it with prayer. The reason for that, or wachekia, not necessarily the sacrilegious prayer or anything, but wachekia, because again, there's some questions they might ask that we refer to as ochbari, or tobacco questions, eh?
Mm.
And we want them not to be inhibited by that, but we'd like to protect their interest and respects to their relationship with the spiritual world, that we're doing it in a respectful way, although we've adapted the manner in which it's being shared based on this virtual experience. And so you see, we also need to acknowledge and not compromise our value system. But we always start our podcast with in a spiritual way, with a sharing with these spirits, and letting them know this is the manner in which we have to do it now for the safety of the great and for the sake of the greater good. You see,
Yep.
it's just something that, so people don't realize we're not patronizing what it is that we're being shared with. We're respecting it in every sense of the word, and we're trying to go about it as well as we can, until, of course, we can get back to some sense of normal. What do you think of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And these young people need to understand that. Develop and create, the young lady who was talking about, develop and create her own path, as long as she goes forward in a respectful way, with the understanding of what it means to be respectful of yourself and not try to create a big-headedness, if you will, of who and what you are, but your representation of yourself, your tribe, your family, your tribe, and all of these things. In a capitalistic world, Saskatchewan Indian Gaming Authority is really looked down upon, because there's Saskatchewan Indian Gaming Authority. These individuals in this big knit corporate structure have taken it upon themselves to realize in a lucrative way the management of their resources, which is gambling. But the reason why they're looked down upon by a capitalistic society is because SIGA realizes the importance of sharing their profits with every reservation in Saskatchewan. And that's against the nature of that business concept of you got to protect your principal, you got to protect your overhead, you got to be greedy and get every dime you can, eh?
Yeah.
And SIGA doesn't do that. Instead, they give back for the sake of dealing with social issues on every reservation in Saskatchewan. So that's what I'm trying to help people understand. But because these businesses want to make money and become billionaires, they won't relent or let go of that capitalistic approach, which usually leads into imperialism. But at the same time, what SIGA has established is an opportunity to let them realize, hey, they can give back and be real about it, be sincere and committed to affecting, not effecting, but affecting the lives of Indigenous people, Indian people in Saskatchewan. So our young people, when they learn about how to respect these things in a good way, they can be diverse. They can be personal. They can be individual in regards to what they wish to establish, as long as they do it with the realization of this dignity and honor is being maintained based on respect for the sake of the integrity of our people as Indigenous. You see? Philosophical approach to that.
Yeah, if there's any questions, you guys, in that while you're watching, go ahead, put it in the comments, and then we can, while Tommy is talking, we can throw him up there when he's finished with the
sure.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm open to anything, as it relates to some of these concerns, because, one of the things, Nathan, I recognized as a concern. I don't want to call it a problem, but a concern is they make everything political and as opposed to spiritual. And they forget that you're doing this based on the fact for the sake of the greater good. And they forget and they start recognizing the political sense, what can I get out of it? That personal agenda. And what's in it for me, that attitude of entitlement, and totally disregarding the rest of the people. That's not our way. But it appeared, based on this forced assimilation and this re-education of that learned behavior, our people accepted that and said, well, I can make it too, because their standard of living was based on a white man, not necessarily an Indian that's happy, stress-free, enjoying life, attending powwows in spite of how much they have. What can I get out of it? How am I going to make money? As opposed to visiting, seeing my relatives. COVID really kind of put everything in perspective in respects to powwow. Were we going too fast? Were we just taking for granted the participants, the singers, the head staff, the hard work of the powwow committees? That's up to you to think about that. And again, is COVID an act of God? Well, it affects everybody in a different way. Some of our people lost very dear relatives to COVID, and we need to acknowledge that. To ask why is not fair to our system, but to understand the preparation of going beyond that fear of death in whatever manner is important to us. And then understanding your purpose and dedication is important to us. Realizing the mourning that we carry is because of the love that we are able to share with that individual or those individuals that lost. It's not a bad thing. It's something that we prepare for, something that we overcome based on this opportunity to develop our character, to live with life. And people get caught up because they wanted, our non-Indian relatives get caught up in that because they made us afraid of something that we were making preparation for. And so some of our people took on those aspects of fear and are being controlled by it. The greatest tool of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. And yet Indian people are such critical thinkers. We always thought on our own. Look at Crazy Horse, and I shared this in one of our podcasts. Crazy Horse, they acknowledge him as the inventor of guerrilla warfare. And the reason for that was because Again, these guys were marching in a straight line, kneeling down and shooting at the Indians. And the Indians were over there hiding behind rocks and trees and pinging off those British guys because they're all lined up ready to shoot. So they pinged them off. And then the guys run back, the British guys run back to their generals and they said, General, these Indians are cheating. Well, what are they doing? They're hiding behind rocks and trees so we can't shoot them. And Crazy Horse developed that strategy. But that's a true fact. That's true. So do you think Crazy Horse was a critical thinker? Of course.
Yeah, definitely.
Of course. Yeah. And so, see, the same thing applies to nowadays. There's different dignified and honorable approaches to a lot of our problems, but because of this non-Indian thinking or this way of thought, that learned behavior, we think we can't do that, as if we could do whatever we want to do, eh? And yet, as long as we go forward in a respectful way, they don't understand the importance of what it means to be Indigenous and that representation of that without being racist as they would apply it. We can't be racist because we don't feel we're superior over anything. We don't feel we have dominion over animals, plants, anything. We coexist with that. Have you ever heard my story about why they call us Indians?
Nope.
When Columbus coming in the southeast side where he got on them islands, and they said he thought he was lost and he thought he was in India, and that's BS, man. That's not true. What he did was, now you got to remember, Columbus was a navigator. He navigated by the stars. The stars didn't move. and Columbus was so good at navigating that he went from Italy to Spain, and he convinced a queen to give him money to go and check this place out over here because he was an adventurer and he knew something. He was a protege of Galileo, who also understood that circle aspect. And all back in that day, they said the earth is flat. And so if you go too far this way, you're going to fall off the end. But Columbus didn't believe that because Galileo told him it's not necessarily true. And so he went to the queen and said, "Hey, give me some money. We got this. You got any ships? We'll go over there. We'll go check this out." And so they gave them the Pinta, the Nina, and the Santa Maria, and said, "Here, go over there and go do this adventure. And I got to justify the money that I gave to you, Columbus. So I'm just going to tell them I'm sending you to India to go get me silks and all that good stuff, and you're going to spices and whatnot, and bring it back to me." And said, "Okay," because she gave him this money based on what he shared. He wanted to go on an adventure, and so he took off. He went over there and he run into this southeastern island. And in this island, he recognized, oh, man, he said, these are such healthy people. They're such beautiful specimens because they were tall and not fat, but muscular, and not overly muscular, but good specimens. And he looked upon them. And then as he was leaving, after they took care of him for this period of time, this was the initial contact. As he was leaving, he referred to them as Indios. And if you translate Indios from Italian to English, it means of God. These people are of God. And in that, why he made reference to that is because of the way that they lived. They were coexisting with all of this creation, the plants, the animals. They could even talk to the animals. And people say, I think you're lying, Tommy. I said, no. I said, do you have a pet dog? Yeah. When you call him, does he come? Yep. When you tell him lay down, does he lay down? Yep. That's talking to the animals. And so you can speak to animals and they will refer to you back because they understand. So why couldn't the indigenous people with their relationship in a good way, in a respectful way that they had with all these animals, speak to them. And so in that, they weren't domesticated because we didn't feel we had dominion over anything, but they coexisted. And so in that, that whenever the life was given for the sake of the sustenance of the people, they always offered in a respectful way something like tobacco or some sort of a sacrifice of some subtype in recognition of that spirit where it was going to return to for the sake of eating of them or whatever for sustenance. But that's what Columbus witnessed and he recognized, and that's why he referred to the people, the indigenous people that he saw, as Indios. Can you believe that, brother man?
Indios.
Yeah.
I'm just listening to your stories, man, and this is exactly why I've created this podcast for the month, is to hear stories such as yourself and be immersed in all this new knowledge, I guess you can say. So thank you very much, and yeah, keep going.
Oh, you sure? Yeah, I can keep going, bro. They pay me to talk for 3 days now to power, so I can keep going, bro.
Yeah. Or just sending some virtual hugs for our payment. But yeah, we got some.
No. I didn't mean to.
Oh no, I know. I just
I'm a professional speaker.
we got one of our coworkers here who's really impressed by always hearing your stories. So yeah, continue on.
Okay, and like our young people need to understand it's okay to be Indian. It's okay to represent and know. And one of the things that how we could really perpetuate that is by helping them with their family history, helping them understand the importance of that history, and continuing to really enhance that in their life, letting them know who their cousins are, who their uncles are, who their aunties are, who their grandmas are, who their grandpas are. And because to us, that's key. That's important. That's something that is respectful and is a representation of respectful. And the way my children were taught is they never run in front of an old person. They'll stop and they go around behind them. And if they meet one of their relatives, they always shake their hand and acknowledge them if they know that's their relative. Because again, that's something that I think in this fast-paced world that we're losing. And that's a representation of that respect that was instilled in us. And, I have a lot of belief in genetic memory. And based on that genetic memory, I would think that it's already there for them. It's already in their blood, in their bloodline. So they know that. And the reason I say that, because it's not uncomfortable for them to do that. And so I think that as we continue to understand the importance of developing or creating a curriculum for our young people in a school system, family history is key, I would think. And then as we do these things, I was listening to Chris Scribe in this little panel he's got together with Christy and Robin, and there's another girl there, but they're wishing to address and hopefully implementing ways to deal with the trauma that Indigenous people experience pretty much on a daily basis, and how we've tolerated that. But yet we have tools in which we can deal with that aspect of our life in a good way and not let it become negative. And but the trauma is I can see that as so beneficial if we would just acknowledge that it exists, get this hierarchy to understand the importance of going through. There's an individual, his name is Dr. Michael Yellowbird. He's over in Manitoba. He's originally from Hidatsa, and he did some research. He's an Indian guy. He did research and all this stuff, and he's helping us to understand the importance of the hitting of the drum, the singing of the songs, the ceremonial songs, the participation and active participation in attending ceremony, and how that has affected us physiologically, how that has affected us mentally, how that has affected us and just in general. And there's studies, because he's an Indian guy and that's important to him. He studied that and he got a doctorate for that. And so he's trying to bring that back. But he's originally from the States, but he works in Manitoba and Canada. Do you know why? Because the United States of America couldn't accept what he was doing, because he was acknowledging that. Whereas in Canada, they're a little bit more open to that sort of thing. And so he come up here and he's the head of some department at some college in Manitoba. I don't know where, but his name is Michael Yellowbird. I don't know him, but I read of him and I seen some of his stuff. He's on YouTube as well.
Huh. I have to definitely YouTube him, I guess, and check his stuff out.
Yeah, you know, and the point that I'm making is that the opportunity that we have amongst us, you know, Nathan, what you're doing is you've been intuitive to at this time of need. You're filling a void that you recognized is much needed, and that's a lot of respect there, brother man, for doing that. Because I couldn't do it. I don't know how. Although I do have a podcast that I'm a participant of. It's because of my nephew, because of his technology and his understanding of that is how I participated. But, and again, this is where our people need to understand that we need to take advantage of the tools that are afforded us. We need to step up, and like Robin and Christy and Chris and those guys are wishing to address the trauma and how it negatively affects us, and nobody's ever acknowledged it before. We need to recognize, if not from a tribal perspective, but from a community perspective, or even an individual perspective, on how trauma has affected us negatively. And pushed us into this learned behavior of alcoholism, addiction, and all that antisocial behaviorism, beating up your wife, children, becoming that classic noble savage. You know, that's what bothers me, is the way they try to identify us as a noble savage. I'm no noble savage. I don't beat up my kids, and I don't beat up my wives, and I don't beat up on my relatives, and I don't get drunk. I haven't drank in 40 years, nor have I done drugs in 40 years. And all that stuff. And I'm not a neophyte Indian either, although I participate. I'm just a common guy. And so in that, they don't understand that there are people like us. And I know so many people that carry doctorates, and, you know, in the powwow arena, I'll try to acknowledge them if I know them. There's doctor, wasn't doctor, this, that, and other. And because I want people to understand, in the powwow arena, we don't know their personal lives. But if I do, I try to bring it out, because our young people need to see that. They need to see the participants are there as a result of the behaviors they learned in a respectful way on the powwow circuit. It's not just a grab-ass party that we go to. It's one of respect and dignity and honor. I've never drank for 40 years or did drugs for 40 years, but I powwowed for about like 30 of them years, And I've never been to a 49. I don't know what that's all about. But again, our young people need to hear that, so that they know they can also go to those things in a respectful, dignified way, maintaining the integrity of who we are, in spite of that difference that exists there.
Wow. Yeah, I just put a thing in there in the comments. If anyone has any questions, to go ahead and ask Tommy if you would like. You want to take a 3-minute break there, Tommy? Get some water, or you're good to go?
Yeah, I'll run out and have a quick cigarette, and I'll be back, and just do what you need to do. Keep them entertained, and I'll just be back.
All right, we'll try our best.
I'm gonna go chase some rabbits, I would say.
All right, you guys, we're gonna give Tommy a little break there, and I have to put him on mute. All right. Yeah. So, what do you think so far?
Yeah, that's been amazing so far. Just
I think I got to turn on your thing. Go ahead.
I said it's been amazing so far. It's just very. He's bringing up a lot of topics of interest that I think a lot of people out there can really relate to.
Yeah, his intellectual use of words, man, is amazing to hear too. You know, it's nice to hear someone of Tommy's stature just to tell us how it is, and you know, but in a good way too as well. So I think whoever you guys, like, we got all the way from Oklahoma watching. So yeah, welcome to our school podcast. If you guys are wondering what this is, while we're waiting for Tommy to do his thing and come back, we decided here at Clifford Wetney School, me and my practicing student here. You introduce yourself.
Oh, well, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Nikki Olette. I'm doing my first practicum here at Clifford Wetney School. I'm enrolled in the Indigenous Social Work program. So, yeah, I'm learning a lot as I'm here, and yeah, right into the world of podcasting.
Yeah.
I'm just observing right now. I'll get a little more comfortable, I guess, as we go along. But yeah, so far it's been really good, and a lot of information being shared, a lot of knowledge, and it's awesome. It's good to be
We
here.
are only on day 2. This is day 2, and we are going right till the end of the month, Monday to Friday, till the end of February. Yesterday I had my Uncle Winston Watney on there. If you guys want to tune in for the old shows, all the way from where's that? Nevada, Pyramid Lake, Peyote tribe. Is that Peyote? Sorry, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Peyote. That's awesome. Wow. And this is exactly why I created this this online, is like to hear, you know, usually people wanted to hear stories from around our area, the Treaty 6 area of North Battleford, Saskatchewan. You know, we have our reserve, Red Pheasant, and then right across the road we have Mosquito, Grizzly Bear Head, Lean First Nation, and we have Soto, Sweetgrass, we have Little Pine, Powmaker, and Mooseman, and Attack-a-Coop and Thunderchild, all kind of around in the area. And everyone, there's different stories, but they're kind of similar. I wanted to hear way down like south, and so I'm reaching out everywhere across the world. It's Indigenous storytelling. So Indigenous to me is, us people here on Turtle Island, and and in the States and Mexico. I'm reaching out to New Zealand because I have some family over there when I used to live there in 06, 07. So I'm reaching out to those kind of stories. So if you guys know anybody that has stories to tell, or whether, as long as they're in an Indigenous perspective, let us know, and hey, we'll put them on the show. We are here Monday to Friday, from 12 to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's Saskatchewan time. So Tommy said he can go for till 3 o'clock our time, and yeah, we're open to it. Never going to say no to some knowledge that he's going to drop. So yeah, where else we were? Pendleton, Oregon. Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla. Man, I'm just butchering words today. Umatilla, Cayuse, and Walla Walla. And see, there you go. And I don't know, you guys tell me if I'm wrong or right, but what are you guys' thoughts on this how we are now? I know everyone's starting to do podcasts. Do you guys like this way because you're hearing stories from the comfort of your home? I know, we, like Tommy was saying, we got to start embracing the tools that are given to us. And this is the way, I think, right now, just because, we got to wear these stupid things every day now. And, that's just where we don't even know when life is going to go back to normal. But what do you guys think of this way? Do you think this is a good way for all of us to share knowledge, across the world? Never mind nation to nation, but across the world.
I think you had talked about it earlier about when we were talking about having guests on the show, and being open to having guests from all over the world, and because to see that similarity in the cultures.
Yeah.
Right. Like we all have our stories, our legends, but there is a common thread and a similarity amongst all of the people. So
yeah, like Nikki here is a horse people. She's into the horses, and is it all your life you grew up in horses and stuff?
Yeah, I pretty much grew up with it my whole life. I was lucky that my parents saw that, and they nurtured that gift in me, and I've been able to carry that through my whole adulthood I still do. It's still a huge part of my life, but being able to bring that horse spirit, that essence in, and working with people in a way that we can encourage some of that healing to happen within our people.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tommy, we were just getting some comments in there, answering some questions, and people are really liking it. We got all the way
No,
from
no,
Oklahoma.
nobody giving out that cognitive dissonance, trying to protect their whiteness yet. I'm teasing. That's a joke. That's
Hey,
a joke.
Tommy, how do you pronounce these words, these reserves?
Which ones? Pendleton, Oregon,
No, yeah,
Confederate tribes of Umatilla,
Umatilla.
Cayuse, and Walla Walla.
No, Cayuse or Cayuse?
Cayuse. I call it Cayuse. I don't know if but
Okay.
Umatilla and Cayuse and Walla Walla. Oh, cool.
We got away from Nevada too. From is that Peyote?
Pyramid,
No, it's not
no,
Peyote.
Paiute tribe, not Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. Yeah,
Okay.
Paiute.
We got everyone from everywhere, and people are finding what we're doing right now. They're enjoying it, and someone was sewing, and she said she just started seeing this and enjoyed the Tommy, and is missing the powers.
Oh,
Video
cool.
podcasts, yeah, video podcasts are amazing. We need to connect nation to nation. I speak with a lot of non-natives within education. They expect us to adopt their points of views, especially if we are educated. This is beneficial.
But they should afford us. They should reciprocate that respect, eh? Afford
Yeah,
us an opportunity to address it. Donnie Spidell, right? Do you know
yeah,
Donnie?
yeah,
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 yeah. What he's doing in Saskatoon. I'm on his board, and that initial that inception of that whole process is called cultural responsiveness. That evolved from a vision, lack of a better word, as it relates to Dr. Kenneth Goodwill. That comes from the Standing Buffalo Reserve. And he had a doctorate, I believe, in Indian education or education itself, administration or something like that. But he wanted to implement an opportunity for the non-Indian people to understand and have an opportunity to respect our way of life as well. And so that came about as what we referred to as cultural responsiveness. And do you know the effectiveness? Donnie deals with like 20,000 students within that Saskatoon public school system, and I think over 500 administrators or teachers
yeah.
total. And based on Dr. Goodwill's vision or vision statement, if you will, they continued to pursue that, and it has been so effective in helping our people deal with some of the dilemmas of traumatic experiences they did in the schools, that happened to them in the schools, or ridding themselves of this boarding school era BS and all that good stuff. And the parents were not acknowledging the problems that the Indian kids were having in the schools. Once that cultural responsiveness come about, they start coming back and supporting their children's efforts. And as a result of that cultural responsiveness, and that's what I'm talking about. That's what needs to occur across the nation. At one time, I believe they looked at that cultural responsive perspective as a pilot program, and they funded the parliament funded some of it, but they didn't continue on it because I think it was a threat to their educational process, and I think they had to deal with the politics, that which is the nature of the beast in respects to conveying our perspective, is because the non-Indian relatives couldn't accept that. But Donnie continued. He is continuing. And for the sake of the growth of our young people that are involved in that, oh man, I wish they kept the data or the logistics as it relates to those participants and how productive they have become in their various communities in respects to understanding the importance of identity and the opportunity to exercise their cultural value system in a good way. We had a lot of support from non-Indians. I'll share that in respects to what Dr. Goodwill's and Dr. Goodwill's no longer with us, but he spoke his language. He was somewhat of a ceremonial man. I sat and prayed with him with a pipe and all that good stuff, but he understood the importance of that, and that is an indication of how it can work once that reciprocity is shared from both sides, But we get such animosity from the current system, that it's failure to accept that we are even human beings. And that's what they don't recognize, is that when they deny that, they're denying our existence. And so they always think that we're hangers on or something like that. And
Yeah.
but and that affects our young people in respects to, again, this ideological paradigm shifts that I keep speaking about, in regards to this pedagogy that needs to be implemented, a different way of teaching, not totally not changing it, but just addressing and incorporating or implementing something in that regards, as it relates to land-based teachings, abstract learning, experiential teaching, stuff like that. So it would enhance our non-Indian relatives in realizing the importance of character development. There's to go on with that. There was an individual back in the 1800s. He was referred to, in our language we call Ohiesa, Ohiesa, and that what that means in our language is champion. Can you still hear me, Nate? I heard a buzz. Can you guys still hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But there's a guy that by the name of, he was an Indian, reservation Indian. They called him Ohiesa, and that means champion in our language. That's what his name was. Well, they took him, and he went to DC or somewhere in that area when he was young, and they educated him in the white man's way of belief, and he got educated in all these big universities and whatnot, and he came and he realized a doctorate. He was a medical doctor, and what he did with that degree or that honor that he realized is he came back to his reservation and he wanted to help his people, in spite of the money he could have made if he stayed in New York, in that area, based on his ability to be a medical doctor. He came back and he wanted to help his people. But before he came back, Ohiesa, recognized the importance of character development. And based on that, he wanted to share that attitude with his non-Indian relatives that supported him, that he was one of the original creators of what they refer to as the Boy Scouts. And what the Boy Scouts do in the United States is it develops one's character based on abstract learning, hands-on experiential teaching, and it helped them to develop. But that's what Ohiesa wanted to share with them. So he was one of the original people that created the Boy Scouts. And then with that, he came back to his people and he was providing them with medical attention and medical needs in a good way, without being domineering or without trying to impose or infringe on them, but he was just respectfully wishing for them to recognize the importance of character development. And, under natural law, that's basically what it is. When our relatives say, "Mitakeepi, berehichiapo," my relatives, make yourself strong, that's what they're intending to help us understand. We make ourselves strong through character, not in muscles or anything like that for the sake of dominating, but for the sake of developing our character to be able to exercise in a good way the compassion, the empathy, the caring, the sharing, the generosity, the patience, the loving, all of these aspects which are virtuistic in realizing the importance of the representation of yourself, of your family, and of your tribe. And that's something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. They don't want to share. Because, again, what they'd acknowledge is Charles Eastman was that Indian boy's name, the one that I refer to as Ohiesa. And you can Google him and look him up, but look up Charles Eastman, and there's a story on him that shares exactly that. But what he was wishing to share was the importance of character development. And that's what we do. We're not arrogant. We're not boisterous. We don't brag about ourselves, but we share in a good way for the sake of our purpose and our dedication, for the sake of the greater good, to make it better for all, not just myself. but to establish that. And that's why Ohiesa came back to his tribe and helped his people with that, that information or that intelligence that he acquired without trying to be too intellectual. Eh?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just had to run to the bathroom real quick, but yeah, I'm back. And
TMI.
TMI. When I edit this, I'll beep that out. So we're going for another hour, you figure, eh?
Well, actually, 15 minutes would be fine by me.
Okay. All right. Sure, sounds good.
But I could go for another hour, no problem. But I got to go run and do some stuff anyway today as well.
Okay.
But Nathan, this whole perspective, and hopefully you can archive this, and it's on YouTube, so it will be there. So that one of the things that I was when I in my teachings by these old gentlemen and these old ladies that I kept dear to my heart, that carried this wisdom. One of the things that they shared with me was, my boy, you keep these things close to you. Don't be telling everybody what we shared with you. I said, well, why is that? He said, because they'll take it like it's theirs and they'll go sell it. I said, I said, oh, okay. And so I've always maintained that, eh? I've always tried to respect their wishes. But then this came about. And so in that, what I did was I prayed about it. I asked in a good way, would this be appropriate? Is this something that I could share with the people for the sake of their growth and in these tough times that we're having? Is this, and the acknowledgement came back that it's something we need to try, eh? Because what we're doing is, there's a lot of, I hate to say a lot, but it is a lot. There's individuals that have no understanding of the protocol that we carry, the regiment that it takes to, and the discipline that it takes to carry this what we would refer to as wapia, we chasha a wapia, wia. Those are people that heal, people that fix things through ceremony. That's what that means. Women and men that heal through ceremony, wapia, we chasha wapia, wia. And they steal stories. Those are the ones that are shaman and stuff like that, have no respect for the experiential teachings, the abstract learning, and they just steal stories and then they make it look like they did that. Eh? Well, that's what my mother and father wanted to protect me from. And so I maintained a lot of this information for myself. But again, I prayed about it. And so it was an indication that I could go forward, and we have to afford this system to be tested, if you will. See if those with a clean heart, a pure heart, will utilize this information in a good way. But those that will manipulate and exploit such an honorable, dignified way of life for the sake of acquiring money or goods or prestige or whatever, it'll catch up with them anyway. That's the way we feel. And again, it's important for us to understand that, see, there's a word that we use, oganashmaya. And in our language, it means don't let them fool you. Eh? He may be fooling you. There's a song that my brother Earl Bullhead shared with me, and I utilize it as a pipe filling song. And that's how in the heck does it go? I forgot it anyway. But what this song said, I know it, but I just don't want to sing it. But what the song initially says is, there's a man, he's coming this way. He's walking holy with a pipe. Don't let him fool you. Okay?
Yeah.
And so the responsibility goes to you. And so this information I share, I share in a respectful way based on your request, eh? And you asked me to help, and that's what I'm wishing to do. And if I felt it wasn't really going to be beneficial to anybody, I would have denied. But I feel, Nathan, that what you're doing in a good way is because Gene and I are good brothers, and he wouldn't refer me to somebody that's just any old way.
Yeah.
but but in respects to that, what I feel you're doing is something beneficial, and I'm wishing not to bring any attention to myself, but to convey and take an advantage of an opportunity to convey what will benefit all of our people at times like this when we're stuck at home, we feel stuck, eh? And addressing or taking advantage of this opportunity to kind of get into our oneness, not loneliness, but our oneness, and to go within ourselves and give them something to think about. Share with them an opportunity to realize the importance of critical thinking, especially in our young people. Being intuitive and understanding that our connection with the spirit world usually comes to us in visions, in dreams. And that's our reality. That's an indigenous reality. Our non-Indian relatives call our grandpas and our grandmas ghosts and goblins and devils and stuff like that. We don't look at it like that. We believe in a spiritual way that we get it, and we have any involvement with spirits, it's always a good thing. And my dad would say, either the spirits need prayers or you need prayers, but it's always a good thing. He said, don't be afraid of the ones that can't touch you. The ones that touch you, can actually touch you, is the ones you should fear. And that's just basic. And so all of these stories, the superstition that you hear about our cultural value system, that was actually implemented in our protocol for the sake of protection of the center, because protection of the center, because the ones sitting in the center knew the truth, but the superstition was incorporated to keep those that were just kind of curious seekers or trying to steal something. Those they were just there peeking around and they were too scared to carry the truth. So superstitions had to be implemented to protect that center, from people like those. But the ones that's sitting in the center, they're the ones that Wowichaki Obomani. They walked with the truth, and so they understand the importance of that. So when I share these things as a result of my sufferings and my sacrifices and gaining this understanding, I don't fear in sharing it. An avenue such as this avenue of approach is one that's being done in a respectful way. But at the same time, I don't fear it because my dad and my mom both shared with me. They said, my son, if they invite you to a ceremony, you should try to go. If they invite you, he said, and go. He said, and then watch. And he said, see if they're doing it. If they're doing it in a good way, you'll feel it. And he said, whatever they're asking for, if it works for them, they understand that involvement to the spiritual side. But if it don't work for them, he said, then they're trying to fool you. He said, but pray, go to the creator, this higher power, in a good way that at some point down the line, it will work for them. So see, that's how we approach things. And so we don't criticize or judge those that even exploit for the sake of money and getting war bonnets and trying to be this, that, or a spiritual leader, or because we don't instill fear. We always try to strengthen or encourage our young people or those people that are interested in this way of life. And we don't try to be somebody, but we just follow our dreams, our visions. And in that, if you're supposed to be a medicine man, you'll become that based on your history or your involvement in that sort of thing. You can't make yourself those things. It's a spiritual entity that will come in. That's why I tease. I belong to a society that I have to represent, but I have to tease. And sometimes the things that I say are people take them wrong, which is fine, and they're supposed to. and so they don't have very nice things to say about me, but that's okay because they're supposed to do that. And when they figure it out, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, that's why God, that guy's weak to go."
Um, yeah, yeah. I don't know if you want to close her up or if you want to keep going here. Like I could
No,
listen to
no.
3 hours easily.
And I could talk for 3 hours. I got some things that I got to do as well. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that we were going on and on, but no, anytime I can help out in the future, Nate. Don't be afraid to ask or even like that, because again,
No.
I feel comfortable in sharing with you, not only because of you, but your audience even more so. And I'm
Mm.
sure if you got some questions that come up and pop up and need to call me back, just let me know. Just text me or get in hold of me on Facebook or something like that, and I'll be more than happy to come back on and try to support some encouragement and some understanding of some of these things. And that's one of the biggest problems that our people have, is they get caught up on the Indian medicine, the voodoo and hoodoo and whatever else, and we are nothing like that. Our way of life is one that, even in our language, there's no sarcasm when we speak. It's a language of respect, eh? And we understand the importance of that, how to always maintain that dignity, because we recognize we don't represent just ourselves, but we represent our family, our tribe, and indigenous people all over the world that have maintained their culture and their value system in spite of this colonialization of
Mm.
our way. But we got to keep up. We can keep up. There's a duality that we accept. We've tolerated a lot of systematic racism, but that just proves our strength. And in that, we acknowledge that when we go sweat, when we go ceremony, we ask the creator or this higher power to be mindful that we don't want nothing, but we want a good future, eh? Good things for our young people, make a good road for them. So with that, in our language as well, we don't have a word for goodbye, because we know that we shall see you again. So with that all being said, I just wanted to say, Dogsha ke wacha genkte mitake epi hoka hecha tu ala wana wa mama kushna. I'm done now. So I said, I shall see you later.
All right. Well, give me a sec here, Tommy. I'm going to close it out and just wait backstage real quick. Give me 2 minutes here. All right.
Okay. I'll
All
just
right.
wait here. Okay.
Okay. All right, you guys. There you go. We had Tommy Christian's. Yeah. He told it all, man. He told it how it is, and we had a good audience, and yeah, and this is, like I said, this is why I wanted to start this, to hear those kind of stories that I never heard, and just to hear different perspectives, and going forward, I don't know where this whole month's going to lead us, but I know we're going to bring in more guests that are going to tell different stories, and we're going to hear all from different sides, and everyone can ask questions, but we're all here to learn. We're just using these tools right now as the best we can to hear those stories. This terrible disease that out there is taking away a lot of our knowledge keepers at a fast pace, and I figured this is a good way to kind of maybe keep those stories as much as we can, share them if we can, if we're allowed. But yeah, going forward, you guys, I hope you guys tune in daily, Monday to Friday, on the Clifford Watney School page. We are doing this out of the respect of just trying to bring knowledge in for our kids who are not allowed to be at school right now. But yeah, in our nation, and so.
Are we going a little earlier tomorrow?
Oh yeah, tomorrow we're going earlier because we got a PD meeting, so we are going to start at 11:00 Central Time. So, yeah, tomorrow's guests, I don't know who it is yet, but yeah, like I said, we'll get a guest. We'll always get good guests. And if you guys have any good guests that you think could be on the show, inbox us. Please inbox this page. Let us know. And they can be from all over the world. We just need to hear Indigenous perspectives and stories. So,
And I believe we have Dr. Winston Watney joining us on Friday as well.
yeah. Oh, yeah. My Uncle Winston will be with us Mondays and Fridays. He's our co-host for Mondays and Fridays. So, yeah. And if we can actually bring on another elder with him, and they can have a conversation, that would be awesome just as well. So like I said, you guys, if you guys know any elders from your area that have awesome stories that you would like to hear, that we would like to learn, let us know and just inbox us. And like I said, again, we are a school here. We have no budget, so it's got to come out the kindness of everyone's heart, and yeah, just share a link and we bring them on. But with that, you guys, I think we're out of here, and we'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
All right, see ya.
See ya.
Hi.